You may have seen our review video for the Book of Many Things set, which included this Book of Many Things. Here is the alternate cover that I bought, the Deck of Many Things reference guide, and this really fancy deck of actual Deck of Many Things cards with the golden edges and very thick, nice cardstock. Almost feels like a plastic, but that's a polymer kind of plastic. If not, it's very thick and well treated, well coated cardstock material. We're going to go through a few of the spread types that are talked about in these books to give you more in depth examples of how to use the deck this way. First, we'll take a look at how to do what the book calls a journey spread. This is using these cards to come up with things that happen on a journey from one place to another. This is often kind of a boring part of an adventure for people. And yeah, you could skip past it if you're going from, say, city A to city B in your campaign, and you can do a game time wipe. You know, it's going to take you, say, 4 days to get there. All right, the 4 days go by. Most GMs like me are going to say, is there anything you want to do on the journey? And then,
Right.
maybe we'll skip to the long rests and see if you get attacked during the night. That's fun. Or maybe there's a random encounter like there is in a lot of published adventures for times you're moving between local scale locations in that campaign. But this is a fun alternative. Instead of a randomly rolled table, you can use this journey spread to figure out what happens on each day of the journey, and this is how you do it. Here's day 1 of the journey. Here's day 2. And day 3. Now, for each of these days, the top card you use to come up with an idea for an improvised challenge. And then the card under it is what inspires the reward or the drawback if the players do not meet the challenge that you gave for them based on the top card. Let's take a look at what we got. So for today 1, our challenge is the priest. Now, the companion reference book gives you a lot of nice detail on every card in terms of options for how to interpret them in a spread like this when you're using them in a more tarot way like this than in the traditional Deck of Many Things. So let's see what it says for priest.
Yeah.
So now if I turn to the reference book and I look at the priest listing, under the meaning for the upright placement of the card, it says a person, perhaps a cleric, druid, or paladin who uses divine magic or is very pious. I kind of went with the obvious idea here that they encounter a priest, and I'm imagining that the priest is outside of this ruined chapel and needs help from the party to defeat something that is inside. He's going and restoring these chapels back to their glory and trying to enhance his faith in his God and get more people into the faith. And so he's going on these missions to rescue these abandoned chapels. But this one's out of hand. He got in over his head, and he really needs the PCs to help him.
My idea kind of mashes 2 of their suggestions together. One is the creature or trap. This actually doesn't say anything about a trap, but the idea of a trap gave me the thought I had. The second part is a place, which it says a temple, shrine, or similar place consecrated to a deity or natural force. So my idea with this would be the venturing party comes upon a shrine to maybe the deity of your paladin or your cleric. And there might be a riddle on this shrine that could possibly end in a trap.
Now let's take a look at this card underneath. This is specifically called the reward or ruin card when the book describes these. Well, we've got a shield. I will go ahead and, in keeping with mine, I don't really even need to look this up. I'm going to take the literal meaning of the shield, since I took a very literal meaning of priest, and say that there is a magical shield that gives protection from quote-unquote evil in the 5e sense, meaning maybe you get a bonus when you use it against a fiend. Was it fiend, fey, or elemental, I think is the protection from evil? Anything that would qualify under protection from evil and good maybe also applies to the shield, and it grants an AC bonus against that kind of creature. So if the characters clear this poor priest's chapel of the animated skeletons that someone put in there, then the priest will offer them this protective shield.
My idea still sticks with that creature trap suggestion. And what it says here is a creature that protects others, such as a watchdog or a shield guardian, or a warding trap designed to repel invaders. So let's say they got this riddle right, and suddenly a spiritual watchdog appears and helps the party out. Or if they got the riddle wrong on this shrine, a thunderous blast repels the PCs and damages them before the next combat.
Now, I'm curious what made you think of Thunderous Blast, because I wonder if it's because there's light blasting out of the shield. Like even the image gave you an idea?
Maybe. I just think I use a lot of thunder damage in my games. So I think that's just like my go-to
Okay.
is thunder damage. You know, you looking at this, it's the image is of a shield with sunlight rays. So
True.
maybe instead of thunderous or thunder damage,
Huh?
it's radiant,
Radiant.
damage.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, and I forgot to come up with the ruin part of my shield interpretation. So, what's the opposite of finding a cool magical shield? Maybe some rust creatures eat weapons, or maybe there's something that destroys weapons, or to be really on theme, destroys armor somehow. So, I'd have to think about that a little more. But
A
I
mimic
think
appears.
a mimic might be good. Oh yeah, instead of the magic item, there's a mimic that looks like the magic item. That's good. For day 2. Our challenge is dragon, and it is inverted.
Yeah. So if we haven't said, the position of the card or the orientation of the card actually has different effects on how the card is read, just like in tarot.
Yes, for the top card it does here, and in many of the other spreads it does. They specifically say it doesn't really apply to the treasure or ruin underneath for some reason. So for the reversed meaning for the dragon, the book says among the entries it has a place where a dragon was slain, leaving a magical or physical scar on the land. I think that's pretty interesting. I think my idea would be that the party comes across this magical scar that they have to make some kind of save to get through, or maybe they can see how they can get through it. Some kind of magical barrier that's blocking the passage that they're in. For whatever reason, they can't go around it. They've got to go through it. If I were running a real game, I could come up with a reason they can't go around it. But right now, I'm being very abstract. Right. So in a sense, this is like a trap, but not technically because nobody said it. There's this swirling wall of wild magic, and they don't know how to pass through it. And maybe the magic users can make an arcana check and figure out a way to walk through it without getting hurt, but it's possible they get the wrong answer.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be some other way to get through. It's never good to have only one very specific kind of solution to a problem. So maybe this is the best I can do on on short notice, just pulling something out of my butt. But maybe it really does respond to bludgeoning damage. Maybe it's something physical that was fused into this thing, like a wall of stones. So the fighter could try to bludgeon his way through it. The wizard could try to think their way through it by finding a way to dispel it. It doesn't maybe respond to an ordinary dispel, but there's something they notice that's special about it. And hey, maybe the roguey thiefy person has some way where they notice once in a while these stones are parted enough in the air that if you've got good reflexes, you can jump through it.
All right. My idea is, again, apparently I really like creatures and traps, but in a quick reading of what their suggestion is, I immediately was like, yes, that's happening. What they suggest is a Dracolich or another undead dragon appears, which seems like a really memorable fight one way or the other for your party. And who doesn't love fighting dragons in Dungeons and Dragons? So
there you go.
It's a real easy, quick one for you to throw into something. And then they can figure out how to respond to it. And then we get to our next card, which will give us our reward or ruin.
And it's going to be the plant card. So this looks entish and druid-like to me. And so I'm thinking that the reward might be something that has to do with the prevailing of the natural world over the artificial world or the world of artifice that humans create. I get some of the kookiest stuff when I have to get ideas right out of my butt on the spot. And right now I'm having the idea for a twig that when you say a magical word turns into a treant from the monster manual and fights on your behalf for a limited period of time.
How many charges
like
a day?
5 minutes. I'd say it would have 1 charge per day, and it re-ups on a long rest, and you have to attune to it. Now, for Ruin, I would say that the ground erupts in these grasping sentient vines, so the players are not only in difficult terrain for movement, but also they're fighting off vines that are actively trying to grapple them every turn. And now that I'm thinking about it and visualizing it, I also think it'd be pretty cool if the vines worked together to hand the PCs down in a bucket brigade style to get them as far from each other as possible. Strategically, the vines could try to push the PCs to the edge of the space. And then when they've got them there, try to kill them with bludgeoning attacks.
And for my thought on this, I would think that a Draco Lich or an undead dragon would cause blight across the land that they were inhabiting. So, in a reward fashion, and they've defeated this Draco Lich, suddenly a new creature or a new plant appears, and beautiful, abundant growth reappears within this area. Um, Vice versa, if it's ruin, the Dracolich continues to reign and spread its territory, destroying vegetation and life on a larger scale.
There you go. And here's the final day of our example journey spread. We've got an upside down well. That's 2 reversed in an order.
Yeah.
For the well card, I really keyed in on the listing for situation. For the reverse meaning, it says a familiar situation that ends up defying expectations. And I also want to point out that the images in the cards can inspire you as well. And I noticed that this well has a roof. That made me think about what would a mysterious house be? And then my brain said, what if it was the childhood home of one of the player characters just suddenly appears somewhere far from home on their journey, and they're like, what is this? And if they go inside, it looks like their childhood home, and they go over and they find the bed they slept in, and the house locks shut. It's a kind of trap, really, is the idea that I have, is that whatever party members are inside, some kind of trap is triggered that shuts all the doors. They're magically locked. If a PC uses the knock spell, if they have it, maybe I'll say that some creatures manifest and attack. But in my mind, the house itself, maybe the house could attack. Actually, I like this idea. The house itself is a creature that will try to basically eat the souls of the players that it traps in there, player characters that it traps in there. And maybe the wood planks can come off the wall and do bludgeoning damage. The whole house can shift, or it can try to smash them by flattening itself briefly and popping back up.
So we're making the monster house.
Yeah. Yeah, I want it to be a monster house. It's a familiar thing, but that is reversed. So instead of being the guy's comforting home, it's trying to kill them.
All
but
right.
it lures them inside by looking familiar.
Interesting. I like that. I kind of thought something that would be a little cool would be, say, a PC's familiar suddenly turns on them and runs away or starts attacking them and causes strife in that relationship at this point. It's a creature that's very well known to its owner, acting out in a very peculiar way.
Interesting. What's the challenge? How do the players meet that challenge?
I would say maybe it's another fight, another combat.
You have to kill the familiar?
Maybe.
I guess they can call it again if they do.
Yeah. Or it could be one of those, as the battle goes on, it starts to change and they have to figure out how to save the familiar.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it'd be something like that. Yeah. All right. Now let's look at our reward or ruin for the well. It's the moon. So the moon card is more or less about things that aren't quite as they appear. I've got kind of an obvious choice for ruin. This magical house is already something that defies appearance. It's already not what it seems to be. So for ruin, well, maybe we could take that a step further. If the PCs fail, the house transforms into its normal form, which, surprise, surprise, is a magical person. This is some fey creature that can turn itself into that house and make itself not be that house. And so if the creatures fail to defeat it, then they become captured trophies for this being. And maybe this being takes them back to its enclave of other weird, dilapidated building people who run around and do this and compare their treasure to each other. And these people wind up being prisoners of them, that they toy with them for their own amusement. For reward, I would say that once they defeat the house, and there's got to be a way for them to defeat it. I didn't think that through with the well. I keep thinking, well, there's got to be a challenge. I have to know how they can defeat it. If I'm going to do this right at the table,
Right.
I can't defer that idea, right? So maybe they have to figure out that there's a hearthstone literally inside the hearth that needs to be destroyed. So if the player characters destroy this Hearthstone, where the Hearthstone was sitting under it, they can now see that there's a little trapdoor that opens up. They pull the panel out of it. And inside of there is a magical item that will allow them to cast Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion at will, just because I guess we're on a house theme for my idea. And now the party has a nice way to rest in safety while they're traveling. In fact, if this journey went past 3 days, then they could use it right away.
Right. I'm going to go back to my idea of this familiar that attacks the party. Maybe once it's starting to be defeated, it runs away, and the PCs have to investigate this area to figure out why exactly this familiar is doing what it's doing. In so doing, they find out that this area is cursed. During their investigation, maybe the PCs, for reward, find an item that allows the caster to find familiar or somebody to cast find familiar at one level higher than they normally would. But if you think about the ruin, maybe the PC who casts the find familiar spell loses the ability to do so.
Yeah, interesting. You can have some mad PCs.
Oh, I know.
But you know what? Then you can set up a follow-up quest for them to figure out how to regain that.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. I'm noticing something as we tried this out for the first time. This is the first time each of us have done this right now on camera. And I'm noticing that we had a tendency to want to take the reward or ruin and revise what we thought the challenge was going to be.
Yes, almost always.
I have one of two ideas about that. One of them is that maybe as the DM, you just want to take a peek at it, even if you're not revealing it to the players yet. But also, I wonder if because we're on camera, we're trying to come up with really impressive ideas. And if I were to do this at the table, I wouldn't be able to defer some of this and say, like, maybe some kind of thing does some kind of thing. I'd have to know exactly what it was if I was running it at the table. And I'd be much more inclined to make it random, and I don't care, right? So for this one, we turn up the upside down dragon. Okay, upside down means it's undead. It's an undead dragon. I mean, we did that part we got, right?
Yep.
If I'm thinking quickly, a plant is a bag of magic beans. So either look at the bottom one before you draw the top one, or be willing to not try too hard to make it perfect. Now, we went through that imagining, showing that right to players, but I think you could also just pull it behind the DM screen and use it however you wanted to. And in fact, it's also going to make it easier to come up with the ideas because the players wouldn't know which card you drew, so you wouldn't have to strictly stick to it.
Right.
There's a little bit of pressure when the players see the face and they know what you're thinking and doing. I also think I prefer a little bit of the behind the GM screen approach for it because of immersion. If players ask me what I'm doing with cards back there, I could just say I'm using them as an alternative to dice for certain things that you don't need to know. But I'll do, like, I could do a journey spread, but doing it back there, or I could do it before they show up for the game. I can do that during prep,
Right.
which is even better. Just to give me ideas, to get me out of a logjam of creative ideas.
And I think that's how I'd use it in prep, if you want to keep it secret.
Yeah, be faster, too, because you've already done that up front.
What we just did could be done a lot faster if maybe the players have a little input on it as well.
That's true.
And they do it as a collaborative thing. Instead of you just trying to figure out exactly what this means, maybe the players have a little input on the story as well.
Yeah, that would work really well for a collaborative style. That's a very legit style. It doesn't happen to be mine because D&D isn't primarily written that way. So anytime I start to do that, I feel like it breaks immersion because we don't already have the agreement that we're creating the whole story together. There are games that are built around that mechanic, but when it only does that once in a while, I'm a little bit controlly about the apparent randomness of things. Randomness is fine if it is concealed by the illusionary magic that we do as game masters, right? If it's covered or concealed by that. I'm not talking about the randomness of the dice. That's part of the fun of the game. And it mirrors the sort of quantum chaos of people trying to do things in an environment. Cards, a little less so, maybe just because they're less familiar in the RPG world on the table. Right. But really, either style is great. Yeah. And I say this a lot. In a one-shot, I'm way more willing to do stuff like that. Whatever goes, goes, because we don't have to live with it for an entire campaign, and I don't have to explain
right.
Why didn't the world end when XYZ happened? This thing says it swallows the entire world. Campaign ending stuff I'm not as worried about in a one-shot.
Fair.
there are a few different types of divinatory spreads that are laid out in the reference book here. We're going to take a look at just one of these. They call it the 5-card spread. It's very, very, very reminiscent of how you use the Taroka deck in the Curse of Strahd, if you're familiar with that. So I'm going to deal these in this fashion. This one first. This one. This one. This one. Ooh, it's reversed. And this one. The way these are laid out is that this card represents something called that which is hidden. This is the outcome. This is that which is needed. This is the challenge. And this is the quest. So what you can do with this is similar to what you do with the Taroka deck in Curse of Strahd. You can deal out these cards in these positions as we have, and you can do it in the character of an NPC who's a fortune teller. And for some reason, the PCs encounter them and they give them this card reading very early, like session 1, this happens. You know, in the tavern where they all meet and say, "You look trustworthy, stranger.
We're best friends now."
Yes, let's go on an adventure." And then there's a really, though it's not that hard to have someone doing a kind of a tarot reading right there.
Right.
And you can shuffle these out, put them right in front of your players. And then the things you decide for these, they don't have to be nailed down just yet. You just got to make sure you keep your eye on them and always bring things back to them and make them start making sense. But on these, you can punt a little bit. Just take notes of the cards that you drew and the initial thoughts that you had, and whatever you had the NPC say. You might have the NPC say, "Oh, reversed magic, dangerous. Sometimes magic is dangerous. Sometimes anti-magic is dangerous."
Mhm.
So this is this hidden spot, that which is hidden, and it's a priest. So maybe it's the people in this area have lost their faith. And that's a kind of a hidden thing because it's hidden also means forgotten.
Right.
According to the
Maybe-
guide, that can mean forgotten.
Right. Maybe outwardly they see and show that they are pious, but don't actually do the things that they need to do to be pious.
That's really good. And then it's hidden. I really
Right.
like that. And then you can subtly start having the NPCs in the town just give little hints like, "Oh, I do my duty to the church." What?
Right.
Make an insight check. Yeah, do they? If you
They show
succeed,
up-
you're like,
Yeah.
well, by duty, they mean that they're there on Christmas and
Exactly.
Easter.
Easter and Christmas are the
Yeah.
only days they show up.
Something isn't right.
They
Yeah.
may give a tithe.
Sure. Now, the outcome is the moon. My dumb brain goes werewolf when I see moon.
Fair. Or something, some child of the night.
So this is in the position of the outcome. So if the players succeed, maybe they cure someone of lycanthropy.
Right. Which could be the king or queen or their children, which maybe that's why the faith is being lost. They feel the gods have turned against them and caused this curse to be brought upon their family.
There you go. And in the position of that which is needed, we have the well card. The well, of course, you might think of water when you see the well. What if there's a specific kind of blessed holy water that either restores faith? Maybe the faith has been artificially lost. Maybe they're cursed and they can't help but feel that way.
Okay.
And that this special holy water renews their faith. This is just a maybe. And again, you don't have to decide this in session 1. You could
Right.
write in a note, maybe this, maybe that. You don't need to deal with it until they get to the point where they need to deal with it. But that made me think of that. Also, water is life. Water is something that gives help or aid. Maybe this can cure the lycanthropy, maybe not. But we do have the key card in the middle here for the quest. And the key, that's just screaming at us that this is whatever will cure that lycanthropy
Right,
for the.
absolutely.
Let's say it's an innocent kid. It's the burgomaster's son. So the bottom card is the challenge. It's the challenge that'll have to be met. Often it's a monster. You could make it an evil mage. That's a pretty obvious
be.
reading. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. This is just here to give you ideas. They don't, you're not going to post this on the internet like we are necessarily right now,
Right.
where people will be like, that's not a very cool idea. Doesn't matter. And your players are going to think it's cool just because you did this business in front of them. That's just neat.
Yeah.
But it also could mean reverse magic could mean some kind of anti-magic, whatever's going on in this town that's a result of the lost faith also is creating this anti-magic field. Maybe it's anti-divine magic instead of anti-arcane,
Right.
which makes this holy water not work. And in the middle, we have the quest, what their party's really looking for. Could think of as the MacGuffin. And whatever that is gets rid of that anti-magic field so the holy water can be used.
Exactly. Makes total sense to me.
Yeah. Pretty cool idea we came up with just by going through this exercise.
Yeah. And that was quick, easy. Didn't think too hard about it, honestly.
Mhm. So what we just came up with could be an entire campaign if it's at a large scale.
Right.
If this lycanthrope, instead of the burgomaster's son, is the king's daughter or the queen's son or whatever, right?
Right.
And then you would fill in the details with lots of other things that happen on the way to these big touchstones.
Exactly.
But you could also use this spread to make it smaller and have this be one session.
So one kind of idea I like is, this special water here from the well. That could come from the Roltmork adventure that we did a review on.
Oh, yeah.
If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. But yeah, that could be a few sessions that lead you through this and give you part of your campaign. I think that's a really cool idea.
Yeah, and it shows how easy it would be to, because these things are vague. That's the whole point. They're vague. They can be interpreted many different ways. And if you think of something that's in the campaign you're running now, it's probably not too tough to tie it in.
Right.
The last type of spread we'll look at is called an adventure spread. And it's, I guess, kind of similar to the two that we just did. It's almost like a mashup of the two that we just showed.
Yeah.
The journey spread and then the divination reading. And here's how this works. We deal one card here. This card is called Party Gathers. Put one card on top of it. This card is called The Adventure Begins. Party Gathers is the situation or place or both where the party get together. It's just what it sounds like at the beginning of the adventure.
It's your tavern.
Some players might complain about starting in a tavern.
Yeah.
How come every adventure begins in a tavern?
I mean, that's how our adventure began, Dave, in a tavern.
Oh, you mean our personal adventure?
Yeah,
That's
personal.
true. Yada, yada, yada. Here we are on a top-rated, by me, YouTube channel.
Yeah, exactly.
So the distinction here, it's a little tricky. I had to read it a couple times to get exactly what they're saying, but Party Gathers is literally just that. Party comes together. Adventure Begins is the inciting incident, whatever kicks the whole thing off. Some creature attacks.
Yeah.
Some evil wizard rolls into town, whatever it is.
The catapult.
Yes. Then there's the journey, which is like the journey spread. Got to make sure we have enough room for these on our camera area here. This one's the entrance. So you're going to wind up in a place. Look, that almost creates a circle right there.
Almost. It's like they thought that.
Yeah. So you're going to wind up in some place that has an entrance. That's what that is. Then there are 3 challenges just after the entrance. These are encounters, basically. 3 different encounters. Then we draw a treasure and a guardian, which is more or less a boss monster.
Yep. I would imagine the BBEG for the journey.
So let's take a look at Party Gathers. It's weird that this is under that because I feel like we should look at that one first.
Yeah.
We've got the shield. Well, party could be conscripted by a mercenary group to accompany them to do something. I don't know. I saw shield and I thought soldier.
Yeah. Or there's just the shining shield as a tavern. I'm going to keep going with tavern.
I love it. Doubling down on the tavern.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So they're in the Shining Shield Tavern. The inciting incident is our plant friend again.
The Ents are attacking.
I was going to say, you could have a treant come in.
I don't know why the Ents would attack, but
Yeah, I don't either because Ents are part of the Tolkien
I know.
estate.
Sorry, treants.
These are treants.
Same thing.
Who knows why? We don't care. It's what's happening. We'll make it make sense later and pretend that we meant it all along.
Yeah.
Next is something that happens on the, well, okay, so the Ent has to set them off somewhere. Maybe the treant is, now I said Ent. Maybe the treant is on an evil rampage. Why is it evil? Because it was sent into this town from a nearby evil
cursed.
wizard's tower.
I don't know. Yeah, cursed. By
Well,
the
I'm
evil wizard.
thinking that maybe this is who the evil wizard is.
Or yeah, we'll figure it out. But maybe the city burnt down a forest that it wasn't supposed to.
I'm trying to get
I know
this to lead to
True.
a location because they have to go on a journey and a location.
Well, we don't need to necessarily know yet. We know that the
That's
treants
true.
are attacking or a
That's
plant.
fair. We don't really have to. So the way the book lays this out again is that you do this in front of the players.
Yeah.
And you turn the cards. So we may not have turned these over yet. So in a preview session, I might defer and decide when I see it all and try to make it tie together. But for right now, if I was doing this in real time, say in a one shot, a Gen Con one shot or something, and I decided this is what we're going to do, the the players and I are going to make up the adventure together as we go, I might be inclined to say that I want to already be thinking about what the journey is. I might change my mind once we get there. But for now, I'm feeling this impulse to say, well, they want to find out where that treant came from. It's got the marks of an evil wizard. Maybe it has the evil wizard's brand burned into its little knotty pine forehead. So they have to go find this wizard, or he's going to keep sending these ents. Maybe he sends a ransom note. I will keep sending these treants into town until you...
Yeah, from a distance, an arrow thunks into the treant's bark with a note attached.
Message for you, sir. I love it. All right. So on the way to find this evil wizard, we encounter a dragon. Well, that could just be a dragon. It could be a wormling, maybe, if your party's lower level. Might try and decide what kind of dragon it is, but that one's pretty easy. I'll take it. And then next is the entrance. So actually, this makes a lot of sense. The wizard has a dragon on the way to his tower on purpose. Then when they get to the gatehouse of the tower, actually, that is not reversed. I flipped that over. So
they find another tavern.
Well, let's think about it. I see purple. I see gluttony.
I say it could be another city or another town that is filled with undead.
Ooh, I like that. An
it's
undead
actually
tavern.
A necromancer.
There you go. Wizard's a necromancer. God knows why he sent a treant in. Could be a dead tree.
Right. Could be a
Are there undead treants? Actually, there are undead treants. So that's what that is.
It looks very evil.
It really
the
does.
Tavern in general looks
the tavern really does. I was also thinking gluttony. It could be, how about I don't know why this is the entrance to the wizard's tower, but I'm now thinking that maybe the wizard is a drunk and he had a tavern built on the first floor. I don't know. But maybe there were people here who were so gluttonous they were damned to be there and die there, and now their skeletons are there and they can't even eat anymore. That's the torture. And so if the PCs come in, they fight the skeletons.
I just assumed everybody worships Slanesh.
Wrong IP. They haven't done that yet.
Right.
Even though they say they're going to do Universes Beyond for D&D, so maybe we'll see that.
Yeah, I mean, Magic's already got it.
There you go. So then we have our challenges. So you get through the Tavern of the Gluttonous Skeletons. Your first challenge is, well, look at that.
The tower.
The tower itself. So some traps, maybe. Could be anything. Poison traps. We don't have to make it super complicated. Needle traps on doors with poison in them. We just know that
floors of multiple traps.
We'll say the whole tower is trapped.
Yeah.
We can, on the spot, we could just draw floor 1. And as the PCs go up, we could draw floor 2 and just make it up as we go.
Yep.
In fact, the number 1 challenge could be getting through a trapped first floor. And on the second floor is our next challenge, which is a gem. So this could be a mimic they encounter on the second floor. Maybe not an obvious mimic, though. Maybe something really unusual. Could the whole room be a mimic somehow?
Or multiple mimics.
Multiple mimics.
Maybe the treasure chest is the only thing not a mimic in this room.
Oh, I like that a lot. Put in something that's really clearly a mimic, like the door into the room is a mimic.
Yeah.
But then there's a perfectly innocent treasure there. I like that. That's good. And then our last obstacle is inverted flames.
Right, but I don't know if it always has to be a challenge. You've got, technically, your next thing could be the BBEG, and this is just...
It is the BBEG.
Yeah, well, this could just be, and it says, because it's inverted,
True.
It's a safe space, right? Is what
That's one of the suggestions you can use.
Yeah, I'm saying it doesn't necessarily have to be a challenge because it's inverted.
I think that's true. I think I would lean toward making it a challenge because it feels like a cop-out to make it not one, like an accidental cop-out almost.
The point of this is to help randomize.
Sure, that's fair.
So, like I said, maybe for me, maybe the inverted flames is a shrine that's safe to sleep in for the night.
I like that. I think there's just something in me that likes the challenge of trying to find... I said challenge. But it is. It's challenging for me to try to find a challenge for something that would normally be a boon. But we could split the difference. It's some kind of shrine that actually does something good, but it looks like it would do something evil. But if the players just happen to try it anyway, hey, surprise, surprise.
Full restoration.
Full restoration and heals, does cure wounds.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like it. Now we get to the Guardian, the
Mhm,
big bad for our
BBEG.
adventure. It's Crossroads.
And
It's
it's-
considered not inverted.
No? Okay, so would the dragon have
Yeah,
been
I forgot
considered
that the
inverted?
dragon would be considered inverted. Yeah, the book says that if the top of the card is on the left, it is right side up.
Okay,
So this maybe is an undead dragon, which fits with our
yeah.
necromancer that we thought
Yep.
was in the tower anyway. Crossroads.
I immediately think demon.
Yeah, that's where the demon shows up to teach Eric Clapton to play the guitar, I think, right?
Yeah, or
And he sells his soul to learn how to do it.
yeah, don't they fiddle at a crossroads?
Probably. I know I do.
But
All
yeah, I think Crossroads, for me, it screams the appearance of a demon.
Yeah.
And maybe a demon that offers a very hard choice to the players.
Yeah. Or a riddle that they have to solve.
Or a riddle, yeah.
Or both.
Yeah.
That's cool. We said this would be a necromancer.
Doesn't have to be.
True. Maybe that's just what the villagers thought.
Yeah.
Could also be a demon necromancer. I don't know why I'm limiting the demon. It can be whatever we want. We're the DM.
Right, exactly.
And finally, the treasure for the whole thing is stairway. That means ascension to me.
Yeah, that could make sense.
So what could that mean? I'm thinking of a spiritual ascension in some way, but I don't know what form that would take in a game in terms of a treasure. Oh, something that could purify food and water, something that could consecrate a space. You don't have to have a priest there to do it. There are real in-game effects that consecration can have. So maybe something that just makes things more holy. That's what I think.
Yeah, you could think, I'll say, an intervention by the gods. But at this point, it's already done.
Well, the gods could come down and do something miraculous.
Right.
Drop this in the middle of a campaign and you've got a player who has some problem, some curse that maybe even greater restoration does not fix.
Right.
How about a wish spell?
Yeah.
You get a scroll of wish. You use it once and it disappears.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things I think you could do with it.
And there's no wrong answer, really. We've been, I think, toying with a lot, trying to make it match the theme. Again, because we're on camera and it kind of makes you feel like doing that. We want to impress you all. But really, there's no wrong answer. That's the beauty of these cards.
Right.
They're just there to give you an idea you wouldn't have had before.
Yes,
and that idea, I don't know where that, I don't know how I got to a wish spell from Stairway. And I kind of don't want to know because I've never had that idea before of a one-use wish spell. How cool would that be? The players would be sitting there wondering when to use it and worried about wasting it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great stuff.
And, I mean, would you make that wish spell anybody at any level can use it?
Yeah. I think most PCs will never get to the spot where they can do that.
Right.
It's often provided by an NPC or something. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and my thinking then it makes it available to anyone, but just once, ever. Ever.
Yeah.
So I could see it, someone using it to resurrect a dead party member. I could see them using it to get out of some horrible predicament they're in, like they made a deal with a demon at the crossroads.
Yep.
Maybe they don't know they're going to get this. Wouldn't that be cool if one of the player characters is so desperate they make a deal with the demon and then they're pleasantly surprised to see the wish spell and they're like, oh, well, I want the demon to vanish from existence,
Right.
thereby nullifying the contract. That's cool. And that's why I love things like this that can break through your kind of being in a rut with your thinking. I get that way with mine. There's just something about being under the pressure of having a new idea, anything that eases prep for the generation of pulling new ideas out of nowhere.
And remember that this is kind of helping us spark ideas through randomization. Instead of using dice, it's using cards. So that was kind of the whole point of this book. And you can learn more of that if you watch our review of this book.
Yes.
So
go ahead and take a look at the cards that are at the bottom of your screen. You can see the Root Mork review. We referenced that earlier in this video. And then also you can go look at our fuller review, our high-level overview of the Book of Many Things. And we'll see you next time.